And President Obama says he believes he has the authority to act on his own, but he does believe it's important for the country to have that debate. So that's what we're having this morning, and we invite you to weigh in on our Facebook page. Joining me in our newsroom, we have our legal analyst, Chris Tridico, news analyst, Mustafa Tamiz, and our public policy analyst, Jackie Bally. Good morning again, guys.
Good morning.
So do you agree with the president that the U.S. Should take military action in Syria?
You know, I think the president and the government is making a pretty compelling case. And the most important thing that they said yesterday, Jackie Bally, was that we have an international agreement that 98% of the countries have signed that we will not use chemical weapons, and the United States cannot sit back and allow a country to use chemical weapons against its own people for fear that that spreads. And he's talking, I think, to Iran and people like that.
I think the problem is the president, when he drew his line last year, Assad said, I'm going to see if he actually means it, and he called his bluff. The reason why the president is now going back and forth, and now he's saying, well, I want to get congressional approval, but he's still emphasizing that he can still take us to war if he wants to, is because a majority of Americans are saying, we don't know what's going on over there. We don't know if chemical weapons were actually used, because there are some questions going back and forth as to who actually did it. The UN, they were saying that they have not finished their investigation as well. So I think now he's saying, okay, I'm going to listen to the will of the people, let the congressional leaders make that decision. There's a very good chance our congressional leaders are going to say there are too many unknowns. None of our allies besides France has given any indication that they will come and help us. We would be doing this unilaterally, and that's a problem.
Well, we've done that before, Mustafa Tamiz. I mean, the evidence is pretty compelling that chemical weapons was used. I've seen the pictures. I'm no doctor, but I've seen those pictures. Yeah. And the United States has acted unilaterally before. The president's, I think, calling the Republicans bluff here, saying, fine, you want to weigh in? Weigh in. But it'll be on your back if we don't do something about this. Isn't that really what he's doing?
Well, I think part of it is, if you take the politics out of it, the right thing to do for the President of the United States, for the Commander-in-Chief, is to follow our own guidelines, the War Powers Act of 1941, that you go to Congress and you ask the permission of the Congress, and with their vote, go to war. And we haven't done that in the past. And the important part of that is that if we are going to, you know, put military and our young people in harm's way, we want to make sure that the country is with us and they understand what it means to go to war. And by going to Congress, he's doing that.
Well, no president has, the War Powers Act doesn't say the president must get congressional approval before going in. The War Powers Act says you have to get approval within 30 days of going in.
And
no president has said yet that the War Powers Act is constitutional, although they've all followed it.
Well, yes, because it's typical protocol. I mean, you saw the Prime Minister in Britain. He called an emergency meeting. He polled the Parliament. They said, we're not getting involved. And I think that's really was an indication to Obama that he better continue the same trend and go through protocol and check with our congressional leaders. Remember, this is the same man who, when he ran as a candidate, as an anti-war candidate, he said that the president has no ability to take us to war without seeking the approval of Congress. And his vice president was very critical of Bush when he went to his war. Now, the one thing that Bush did is he had a UN resolution. He did seek approval from Congress. He had 40 different allies that were supporting him. We don't have any of those situations in place with this particular war. So I think the president is now, as he's backtracking, he's looking at all of those things. And if he felt that this was something that was so important, he wouldn't hold a press conference and go play golf. He wouldn't wait until September 9th. He would have an emergency meeting, call them in, take the vote, and go on.
So you're faulting the president for talking to the public about it?
Oh, no. I'm faulting the president because what he said at first was, I'm going to do this anyway. Then he says, we're in an imminent danger and this has to be addressed now. But then he's saying, well, let's wait until September 9th and then see what Congress has to say. I mean, by the time they actually make a decision, and if we do go to war, it'll be the middle of September at best.
Well, I don't find that to be.
And actually, he has not given us a comprehensive plan. He hasn't told us why we're going to war. I mean, there's no strategic planning or thinking.
Let me bring. I want to come back to that and let Mustafa respond to that. But I'm going to bring Sally in. she's monitoring the Facebook and Twitter accounts.
Yeah, clearly a divisive issue. Americans are war weary, as we heard the president say yesterday. Kristen says, let's work on our own country. Lonnie says an emergency meeting needs to be called to get this resolved. So let's ask Mustafa, do you think that the president has made his case for military action in Syria, or does he need to lay it out better?
Well, you know, senior administration members, the vice president, secretary of state, the president himself has articulated why we need to go to war. At the same time, he's shown restraint in going to Congress and saying, now I want the American public and the elected representative in the United States Congress to vote on this and take a position on this. So I think he's done everything that he possibly can to do this. Over 100,000 people have died in Syria. Our hearts go out to them. Chemical weapons are being used.
But the chemical weapons is the issue, not the Civil War. I mean, we've watched civil wars our entire history, but the chemical weapons is where the president says we've got to do something.
Well, and the president said this is where we draw the red line, and what he's doing now is going back to the American public, going back to Congress, and saying, if you are with me, if you believe we should go to war over this, and if this is our national security, then give me permission to do so. And I think that is the most responsible, respectable thing you can do.
And we're gonna have to leave it right there. Jackie wanted to talk again, but
I did.
I'm not. I can't let her. I can't let her out of time. Sally, we'll see you next
She'll
week.
sound off on our Facebook page, I'm sure, when this is over. Happy Labor Day to you all. We'll see you
too,
next
Sally.
week. Thanks
All right.
so
Thank
much.
you.